Monica and Jeebesh, thank you so much for joining me. I'm just going to start off with a really central question, which is basically, what is Raqs Media Collective? Who is Raqs Media Collective?
So Raqs is an extended practice over a long span of time. That's one idea of the word extension, because we've been working together for 30 years. So we are an extended practice in time. There's three of us, so we are extended bodily in three personhoods, and also extended in space, because we work from Delhi, but we also work and show and speak to people and places all over the world. So I think that's my definition of Raqs for us now, is that it is an extended practice that that also seeks to extend the world in the way it asks questions from it and in the way it engages with it.
Love that. Love that. Amazing. Fantastic. And so you're currently showing in an exhibition called Planetary Gestures, which is a touring exhibition. The second location is at Walker Street Gallery in the city of Dandenong. I just wanted to ask you about the work that you're showing in that exhibition, which is called Deep Breath. So please take us through a little bit about that work.
Well, I can start, but it has been a long and quite amazing journey in the making of that piece. The piece is from 2019. I think it's quite amazing that it was called Deep Breath, and then we had the 2 years of thinking about breath in a very conscious way. But we were actually being very attentive to the act of breathing, to what it is that we take for granted, to what it is that is shared between us. When do we become attentive to that which we take for granted? What are the circumstances of bringing attention and awareness on moments and practices and life rhythms that matter? And how do we become reflective on that and take it in the spirit that life gives these moments to us? So yes, it begins with the idea of breath, but it also connects with the idea of communal life or shared life, in the sense that what does it mean to live together in the world that we do? And so the film was shot in off the seashore of Athens in the Mediterranean, which we worked with 3 divers, and it was very much like the 3 of us were underwater. And we were reflecting on a shipwreck that took place 2,000 years ago, possibly more, speculatively about 2,000 years ago, off an island called Antikythera, where some people might have heard of it because something called the Antikythera mechanism was found in that shipwreck. And it's very famous because it's almost like one of the earliest computing mechanisms. And it's quite fascinating to look at it in the museum in Athens. But there were other things also found in that shipwreck. Still things are being found in that shipwreck because it's very deep and it's very difficult to get everything out of it, including sculptures and so on. But what we were very mesmerized by was a drinking cup, a small drinking cup, really about this size. And it had the word Pamphilos, a terracotta drinking cup, which had the word Pamphilos written on it. And of course, the amazing thing about Greek is that you can read it still. And the word Pamphilos really instigated us to think a lot about, because the word Pam means all and Philos means friend. So what is this Pamphilos? Does it mean friend of all? Was it a name of a person whose cup it was, Pamphilos? Was it something that was shared? So that's why it was called Pamphilos. So we were thinking about that on the one hand, about being underwater, about submergence, about the fact that submarine horizons ask us to think differently about the very idea of horizon, and that assumptions about distance and proximity completely change. And also about the phrase that Luce Irigaray has spoken of, the forgetting of air. So there's this wonderful phrase called the forgetting of air. And I think, it is wonderful to read the writing, but for us, that phrase itself became both a starting point and a point of arrival. What does it mean to forget we have air? And what does it mean to acknowledge that what we have shared between us, air, is what gives us life. So, and we know that we think about things that we don't have. I mean, we think about things more when we don't have them, right? So, which is why it seemed apposite to have our divers sort of waft under the water and come upon these letters which together construct this phrase, because it's only when you're underwater that you realize that you need that air is the most important thing. And while we are underwater, we hear this voice who's speaking to us about walking in the streets of Athens, about talking to people in Athens. And I think it's a very important thing for us that the sea that we're shooting this in, that we're filming this in, is the Mediterranean. It has been called a solid sea at some point. It is a sea with a lot of forensic research that is happening now. Why? Because of the fact that there's so many people on one side, on one shore of the sea, who are trying to make it to the other shore. And what happens in that sea, of course, is contemporary politics in so many ways. Who is permitted, who is not permitted. And so when we were in Athens, we were meeting people, some of whom were thinking about how does one share resources with those who come, and how does one teach languages to those who come from the other side, but also people who were thinking about shared life as a rhythm on the everyday. And so we began this set of conversations with pharmacists who were running systems where medicines that were no longer needed could be sent to someone else. There were people who were saying, how can we turn parking lots into parks where people can sit together? There were people saying, how can we speak in languages that we don't know and we want to learn? So in all of this, we also continued our own deliberation on the idea of deliberative life. It is when you sit down and talk through things, but not just discuss. And this is what we're really interested in, is the idea of deliberation, of slow, reflective, long-term engagement, coming back to the idea of an extended practice, of acknowledging the fact that conversations that take in time and space and duration of that, of reflection, of deliberation, permits us to perhaps arrive at not newer conclusions, but perhaps more extended conclusions, or more affirmative or empathetic or thoughtful conclusions. And so the film is asking us to deliberate with us, to be deliberative, both on the question of breath, on the question of life, and on the question of how we live it together.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. Yeah, no, it's such a special work. And yeah, it's been interesting to see it here in the context of Australia, or so-called Australia, where, you know, we're an island state surrounded by water. We also too have complicated politics, past, present, and into the future. And yeah, so it's been very interesting to have it in that space as well. And also in the first iteration in Cairns, in Gamai, Cairns, where it's proximity to the Great Barrier Reef, where people are engaging in snorkeling in a very touristic way. And so sort of unpacking that and taking something that might be considered really normative in that context and unpacking that and, you know, complicating what other relationships surround water. Yeah. So yeah, it's a beautiful work. Okay, so just wanted to, because I know Raqs has been thinking about the idea of planetary, you know, for quite some time in a variety of different ways. Just wanted to know, I think it's a term that's becoming more and more popular or used in the contemporary art world, which I think is a positive thing. But yeah, perhaps how is that term sitting with you today, or how do you find resonance with the term planetary?
Jeebesh, you're not going to speak at all? Come on, you can do it.
I'm liking it, liking hearing.
No. Now it's your turn.
Okay, carry on. You're saying, speaking very well. It's a good, when in cricket you make run, you should make more runs.
Jeebesh is making me laugh now. You know, the word planetary is so promising. It holds within it not only the facticity of what we are together, but it holds the promise of imagining of what we can be together. And I think that is what is really interesting about the word planetary. It, of course, describes what we are, the kind of connections, interconnectedness that makes the planet now truly a planet. But also, by calling ourselves planetary, it is also a kind of gesture for ourselves into the future. We are saying this is how we wish to see ourselves, not as not only as people from places, but as people from this shared planet. And this is something that we have been thinking about in different ways. The kind of connections and flows, and the range, of course. So you have economic flows, you have the flows of commodities that happen, you have the flows of technologies, right? So you can speak to each other. We are speaking to each other across halfway across the world at this precise moment. But also the planetary puts us in connection to other kinds of flows, which are with the cosmic. We expand our presence, our being. We rise from the dust for a moment and connect to the fact that what we share with the stars is profound, right? So we actually made a piece called The Blood of Stars, where we reflect on many things, including the fact that it is iron from the stars that runs in our blood. It is actually iron that has come from different stars onto our planet. That is what makes us able to live and die. And that process of iron and blood and oxidation of the very force of what we consider the flow of life is something that connects us to a cosmic flow. So we are very interested in all the flows that sort of circulate within and around us, and saying that this acknowledgement of the planetary perhaps is an acknowledgement of being human together.
Yeah, I love that too. Very good. Thank you, Monica. Sort of, those are the main questions I wanted to chat about today. But I guess, Jeebesh, is there anything that's been on your mind recently, or is there anything that you wanted to share in context of this conversation?
I can only add a little bit is that the non-human or the extra-human is come into play in a way that we had always lived with it in our kind of practice of conversation of imagination, like we had conversation with rhinoceros or with a stone or with elephants, or that kind of was parable, kind of mythopoetic parable has been a part of our way we have practiced. So I think there is there will be a search for a new way of talking in the world, which takes this, which kind of rebuilds or reinvigorates and also invents new parable, new mythopoetic forms of inhabiting and conversing with the world. So, and also the different kind of extra human forms of attachments to the world will be kind of reinvented beyond what you can say, once we go beyond an extractive logic to the extra human or the non-human, we may find other ways of inhabiting, which we can draw from many different living traditions or living dispositions, but also invent with a little more daring, more fabulistic, more open world.
Yeah, love that. Thank you so much.